Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Jay Donovan.
Jeff Fischer.
Cookies.
Me, Todd Novak, and our guest knob,
Bryan Adams.
Bryan Adams. The
guy from Canada.
The singer,
yes,
songwriter.
Not
No.
Disclaimer.
No, not from Canada.
our stats are going to go through the roof once they find
Yeah.
out.
Hey, we got Bryan.
I do get tagged a lot on Instagram.
Yeah.
I have at Bryan Adams, and it's sort of like, if you're a big fan, why wouldn't you know how to spell his name correctly?
Sure.
Right? So I get tagged a lot. Loved your show. I'm like, thanks.
Do you ever come back with anything real snappy?
I've tried, but then then you start something you don't want to start. So it's probably best just to take the credit and move
Sure.
on.
You could ask for money. Send me money.
I like these ideas.
Yeah. So for context, Bryan... For context, Bryan is a local Are we Colombians or Columbites?
No, we're not.
Columbusite?
We're not Colombians.
Columbites?
I don't know what the right term is.
Columbinoids?
I like that.
Okay. Who is very well versed in the art and business of guitar, played for many years, and has got a lot to share with us today. And let's start off by figuring out what the crap is new with us in our music worlds today. Jay.
So I've been fooling around with the little. No, it's nothing like that. Unfortunately, it's nothing like that. A little smoky amp. So, and this came to me. I thought I'd talk a little bit about this today because it came to me from our guest, Bryan Adams.
Wait, the Bryan Adams?
From Canada?
I'm gonna run to you.
Oh man, you did not just do that.
Hey, so I'm gonna throw this out there though while we're on topic, just get this out of the way.
You were wearing a fleece in a very small room, I might add, and it's super hot in here. How are you doing this?
I don't know. I'm not that hot.
Okay.
I'm, Cuts Like a Knife, that record, and Reckless. I had them.
Sure.
They're kind of like, they're the ones that I find it hard to admit that I like, but I still kind of like. Just going to put that out there.
Okay.
All right,
that's way worse than Smash Mouth.
Yeah. Why did you say that? Bring them up again.
I'm just
You
trying to get
managed to do that in like every
justification.
I don't understand this. Okay, on with your smoky amp.
All right, so Bryan loaned it to me because I needed to. So you remember in the ongoing saga of the Rhodes keyboard that I'm trying to sell, which I still have not sold. One guy wanted me to sell it to him. This was not you when you were punking me and does it make sexy or whatever it was you were saying? It was like Borat or whatever. But one guy who lived in, I don't know, like Erie, Pennsylvania, the Craigslist thing started off great. He's like, hey, I'll buy it. And I was like, awesome. And he's like, can you drive to Erie, Pennsylvania? I was like, no. He's like, well, how about if you meet me halfway? And I was like, it's like, how about if you come to Columbus? And he was like, no, we're going to meet halfway. So we started, then there were like 25 or 30 emails. And he had like all these requirements. And it was like, man, this is really getting difficult. But he wanted to hear it, and so we were trying to figure out how are you going to hear the Rhodes?
Plug in at a BP, man.
It's like this giant thing. I had the minivan at the time, so I thought, I'll kind of like put it in the back, and we'll
you
just
didn't record a video.
No. Well, we never met. Like the whole thing fell through because it was just like so much. He's like, well, we'll meet at this like casino, and I was like, are you gonna like murder me? Yeah, there was a casino in between.
We'll meet at the horse track.
In Pittsburgh, right? Which he determined was halfway between Erie and Columbus, and maybe it is. And then I started to think like he just lives in Pittsburgh, and he's like just wants me to drive to Pittsburgh. But anyway, I was trying to actually solve the problem. How's he going to hear this Rhodes to make sure that it like is good, because it's in really great shape, I might add, if there were anybody out there that wants to buy one. It's really clean on the inside. Yeah, well, the link will be posted somewhere. So I borrowed Bryan's little Smoky amp, and it's a little 9-volt battery powered guitar amp.
Wait, how did we get here?
This is what's new. This is what I've been.
It's a long
What about
road.
the roads?
You just he's
Oh,
keep
you're
going.
getting there.
Yeah, I was the whole reason I borrowed his amp was to solve this problem of how this guy can hear the roads without me having to be able to plug into an amp into a wall or something so he can hear it.
Right.
This little amp that Brian has is a 9-volt. You know, I think you told me they used to make them out of. They put them in cigarette.
It was
cases, right?
like a hard packed cigarette
Yeah.
thing, and the guy would fabricate all the electronics in it, and then they started making
like an
molded
Altoid amp or
yeah,
something
yeah,
like that.
exactly.
Yeah.
Same.
I got
same
a
model.
Bush's Bean amp.
Yes.
No way.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, it's awesome. I'll bring it in next week.
All right, I wanna see it.
That's how I do my Craigslisting at the BPs on the highways.
No, there was a market for these Craigslist amps, but apparently
Yeah.
there is.
Well, it worked. The one Brian had was it's plastic. Actually, it wasn't in the cigarette case, but surprising amount of volume, and the Rhodes hitting all those mids really. It would overdrive it a little bit. I blew the thing up, dude. Sorry.
It's fine.
No, but that's what's new. All the you can see on their website. What is it? SmokeyAmps.com. You can see where they're pushing it pretty hard, and it can sound pretty cool and kind of nasty for this little. In these days when you can do all this virtually through an iPhone or whatever, this was kind of cool to me because it was an actual physical object. And,
Yeah, that costs like $9 to make, maybe, if that.
There's a very quick funny story about that. I bought that Smokey that he borrowed in 1991 at Guitar in Sherman Oaks, California. And I'm seeing this guy play this thing. I'm like, well, that thing sounds kind of, a little thin sounding amp. It's got like a 2-inch speaker and it's tiny. But then I see, like, they have a demo on their website. The guy plugs it into a Marshall slant 412 cabinet. It has a speaker output. And this thing drives this cabinet
Really?
full on, and it makes it sound like it's a stack. So you think it's
Wow.
you think it's just a little tinny bad sounding amp, but in reality it's just a bad sounding speaker. But it just drives this thing. And right as this guy's playing it, I look over and this guitar instructor wanders out of the back, and he's got this long white blonde hair, and it was one of the Nelson brothers from Nelson
I
and
thought you
the
said
80s.
Johnny Winters, and I was like, what?
Looks a lot like Johnny Winter. And so I'm hearing this incredible sounding little tiny amp, and then I turn around and it's like Gunnar Nelson is standing there. So I'm like, I have to buy this thing because it's just such a weird story.
Well, now you got a story.
Now I got a story.
That's cool.
There's a
Neato,
name I
man.
didn't think I'd ever hear again.
Gunnar Nelson. It may have been
Well,
Matthew.
we're
I don't know the
dropping some
difference.
names today. This is going to be the name dropping episode. Oh, yeah. Okay. Cookie, what do you got?
So last time, remember, I was in a little bit of a writer's block. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I said, screw trying to write new music, and I actually resurrected a song I wrote 12 years ago and started retracking and changing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's about it.
Can we bolster your newness with the guitar that you didn't buy that I tried to make you buy
Oh
last
my
night?
God, yeah, that's the other new thing. Todd was,
I do that to my friends. Just,
yeah,
A lot.
Yeah, he was.
it's true.
A whole lot.
He was making me feel a whole lot.
It's like 12,
A whole bunch.
10 at night. And, I'm like, Jeff, you got to buy this thing.
Yeah, it's like, and I was working late last night, and it's like I'm just getting all these text messages from Todd, like, "Oh, check this out!" And it was a cool Epiphone Les Paul, the Arctic
All white tuxedo custom, man.
with the gold hardware. I mean, it's like
$300.
We were just talking about that guitar.
Yeah.
For
That's
three-
why I sent it to you.
I know, and then so for $300, it's a damn good price.
Yeah.
For that, but alas, I do not have the cash for that right now. Mm-hmm. So I might start selling plasma.
That's
You can make those smoky amps.
There you go.
Used to be able to make good money
You
off
could do
plasma.
that.
Well, have you seen these gas can guitars?
Yeah.
Yes.
So fucking weird.
Yeah. I don't know if we're gonna have to replace that with a sound or something
yeah,
like that, so we can get Apple clearance.
But yeah, it's like when you're talking about the smoky amp, and that's exactly what I'm starting to think of are these gas can guitars.
Yeah.
They're weird.
Yep.
I don't know if
I mean,
I think it's cool or if I
That's
think
cool.
it's really
They're-
dumb. I don't know.
the Dutch cookie tin banjos and cigar box banjos
Cigar
and all
box,
that
yeah.
business.
Those are cool.
I mean, a gas can amp and a little smoky, or a gas can guitar and a little smoky with a slide must sound amazing, right? From a real beer bottle you broke that day
Oh,
on
yeah.
somebody's head. That would be wicked. Hefe, what do you got?
That would clear up your writer's block, I think, too.
It might.
What?
That whole story. You could create a story around that.
Gas can. That's the name of the song.
Yeah, gasket.
No.
No, absolutely not.
Back to the writer's block. Hefe, what do you got going?
All right, so this isn't something I own, but I happened upon it the other day.
Can I interrupt you just for a minute?
Yes.
And preface that
Yes.
at lunch today, as we've said that we often, this is how basically this whole thing started. In the middle of lunch, Jeff, who rarely exceeds a 4 on the excitement scale, registered out of nowhere a 7.
Solid 7.
Smacked the bar in front of us.
I got it.
I'm so excited.
It's his new haircut.
I'm like, what's going on? And you cut
nimble.
and he cut his hair, which is
Is that what's new?
exciting
Maybe.
for probably more so everybody else than him. But go ahead with your story.
So, I bought that JHS pedal. So now,
Which one?
The
Andy
Andy
Charlie's.
Timmons signature pedal. And so now in my
not
YouTube
the Andy
feed,
Charlie.
I get all the JHS stuff. And I just got this other video the other day of a new pedal called the Bulb pedal. Has anybody seen it yet?
The
It
bulb?
looks awesome.
The Bulb.
Bulb.
The bulb.
For those east of, or those west of us.
The bulb. So this idea is really intriguing. Basically, you put in different light bulbs into this pedal, and the way the filament of the bulb reacts with the circuitry of the pedal
cool.
creates all these crazy different tones.
Wow.
What?
It's phenomenal.
That's awesome.
That's really cool.
Now, whether the tones are usable or not, questionable, but it's pretty cool. So he goes through this whole video of putting these different type of bulbs into
Does it have a dimmer switch?
Well, I think that little
The
rotator
expression-
knob up
yeah,
there
expression control.
kind of like the dimmer switch. They didn't go into any detail about how that works or what it does.
That's really cool.
But
It's different. I feel like these pedals are just getting
They're crazy.
They're just getting crazy. It's just somebody had to just try that and say,
Sell a
"I wonder what
million
this
of those
does."
things. Yeah.
but it's amazing the difference of throwing different bulbs in there. Like he started with like a small, tiny little bulb that was just more like an overdrive sound. He put an LED bulb in there, and it created a delay. Like
Wow.
it's the same tone, but now it's just delayed.
What?
That's amazing.
It seems dangerous on a pedal board,
I know.
right?
Yeah,
Just
I know.
stomping around.
It's like, wait, I got to change my
The
bulb.
Minister of Information just gave us something to look at. And
Nice
so we're
Edison
looking at all
bulb.
of these.
Thomas Edison light bulb in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, but there was like a funky disco bulb before that. I wonder what a black light does. Oh, that's fluorescent.
It just makes you play. You sound like Floyd.
Straight to Pink Floyd.
Just
Straight to
Gilmore solos. That's all that comes out.
But yeah, but that Edison bulb was like really rich, sonic with a lot of like reverb sounding, like very surfy sounding. So
That's really cool.
I just thought this was really
We have to
interesting.
pool our funds and get one.
Yeah.
All right.
See, like,
Have you seen a
let's
price
try
on it?
that.
Or
I
they
know,
could send us one to try out.
Well,
and we review it, right?
What's a strobe light do?
That was the LED. That was the LED that you were looking at, but I don't know.
Wow.
Strobe light would be interesting.
Minister of Information, can you tell us how much those are while we continue to discuss? That actually seems like a super fun one to play on with. Not on. I mean, I wouldn't want to play on it, but
That kind of
Yeah.
reminds me. It's a different take on it, but I remember way back in the day. Remember the Yorkville PA systems when they were like the PA systems you could rent
Right.
at music stores?
Yep.
And they were big rental companies, so they started making this circuit because they rent them out to these like bands that don't know what they're doing with PA, and they just go slam distortion through it and blow up speakers.
Right.
So they came up with a circuit back in the day that had it was a truck, like a halogen truck bulb on in the speaker. So when DC distortion would come in from the speaker jack, it would use the DC to light the light bulb to burn off the energy and then pass through the clean signal to keep it was a protection circuit.
Yeah.
And then if you really, really hit it hard, you'd light that bulb up and then you would just blow the bulb.
so it's like a power bypass.
As it was essentially a way to get rid of that distortion or that DC
Yeah.
electricity by lighting up a bulb. So I remember you go out to a club and you'd see one of these rental PA systems, and then you'd see light coming from like behind the speaker cones. And you just knew that somebody was slamming it too hard, but it was a smart.
And then everybody's
gimmick.
like, that's cool. Slam it.
Slide it up.
Make that bulb light.
Neato. So were there any other test bulbs in there?
There are a series of like 4 or 5 you put in there, so you can put the video up and
Wow.
go look at it.
That's really an exciting.
It was interesting. I haven't seen anything like that yet, but I know there's been talk in different forums around this idea of a light filament type kettle, but I don't know if anybody's ever built one that's marketing it before.
Right. So the different metals that are used, I mean, if you think about the different metals, the different wattages, the different amounts of winding or amount or number of filaments.
Yeah.
There's so many variables. Wow.
Yeah. And the current that it pulls. So I'm assuming that's what the expression piece is. It controls the current or the voltage of what's being delivered to the bulb. But I don't even know if they're selling it yet. We're having trouble finding a price on this thing.
It's not on their site.
Wait, did we just get April Fool's punked?
We may have.
It
What?
might have been.
It's all over the net. It says, "What day is today?"
Let's check it out.
Oh, that's gonna be hilarious. If we just
Fell
fell
for
for
it.
it several days after. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, scroll down to the bottom of this Google
I mean,
search.
Oh, it has to be.
See, look,
man.
April Fool's Roundup 2016.
That's disappointing, but
Oh
it is.
man.
Somebody will
Dang,
have
we
to
just.
make this thing.
How did we?
I feel like we have to build it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's totally. But I'll give Grover a call.
Someone's
He'll
going to
make
get
it.
electrocuted.
He's got Radio Shack underneath. All right.
I'm not seeing anything of fake yet, so
Well, no, but it's all over the internet as
Yeah.
being
look-
punked. I mean, if it's on, it'll be on Chicago Music Exchange because they're hand in hand with
there it
JHS.
is.
What does that say? The Chewbacca? Oh man! All right. Well, time will tell if that's true or not. But it's a great story to think about.
What are you about to pull out?
Well,
They say it's fake.
excuse me while I whip this out. So.
Hey, Todd.
Yeah?
What's new with you, buddy?
Oh, well, thanks for asking.
Yeah.
I signed up for Stringjoy Strings. It's a company that is getting a lot of attention right now. They're out of Nashville, Tennessee, and little tiny little company that is doing some good things with strings. And sorry, my password won't connect in. My son of a. There we go. Are you checking what my password is? He's like, okay, so it's stringjoy.com. And what you do is they basically will create a set of custom strings for you based on gauge. So they already have pre-made gauge sets, but the big thing that they try to sell you on, I was going to say get you on, but I don't feel like I was gotten. So it says play your own strings, and it says create your own custom set today. So I went right for it. I've heard some good things about this. They're again, really active and social. And one unique thing that they do is, and I will do this as well on my social feed, is people are taking pictures with their new strings because you tell them what you want. You say, what are you trying to achieve with your sound? And then maybe just any other things that you're looking for. Like maybe you want to incorporate, for some reason, brass strings into your electric set for, like acoustic ones, or I don't know, whatever crazy thing you conjuring up. For me, what I asked for was I'd like to see a wound G. And because I'm playing some harder stuff, or not harder in the sense of like metal, but just with a little bit more attack.
It'd be cooler if you were playing metal.
I
You'd
can
be a
do
lot
that
cooler
too.
if you played metal.
Yeah.
I do play. I'm just saying for this stuff. I play metal. I like metal. I got Dave Mustaine's guitar pick in my wallet, so I mean I qualify.
His model, or did he?
No,
he
his
physically
actual,
gave
he
it
went,
to you.
"Ting," and gave it to me.
He's like, "Hey, Todd."
He's like,
heads up.
Yeah,
Cool.
right in the middle of
Symphony
one
of
of those-
Destruction.
Yeah. Okay. So, anyways, I said, hey, I'd really like to check out a wound G, and You can't just roll into Guitar Center and get those things. I mean, it just, there's probably one maker that does one set like that, but I typically use power slinkies. So I like that range. But I just want to see, like, well, if I'm going to do something different, I want to see what it really sounds like as different. So here's my set. We're doing a audible unboxing. And there's 2 of them in here. And that's 11, 14, a 20 wound, a 28, 38, and a 48. And it comes with a nice little card, like right here. A handwritten
Look at
card.
that.
That's nice.
That's pretty sweet,
Dear
right?
Todd, I hope you
Alex.
enjoy your new strings.
Rock on, Alex and String Joy. Like, that's cool. Here, get it. I'm posing for a
Photo op
picture.
here.
Photo op.
I feel like
So,
this is Dollar Shave Club
I
for
know.
strings. Is that where we're going here?
There's a club for everything. And it's unique. I don't know what they sound like. I may hate them. I may love them. I hope they're not like
service.
cobalts, because I hate cobalts, Aaron. And it was cool. I was like, wow, I think the string, like both of these, I paid like maybe $19 for them, which for a custom set, okay, I
This
can
would
do
be
that.
a good way to do. Have you ever done a Nashville tuning where the
Yeah.
high E and B are the normal strings tuned normally, but the low 4 are strung with really small strings and tuned an octave high?
I haven't. No, okay,
It's
no, I haven't.
super
Sorry.
cool. It gives you this really sort of jangly sound. It's great for if you're recording doubling tracks or laying it underneath. Satriani did a ton of it on his first album, and you hear those like really sharp, biting tones. It's a Nashville tune guitar. This would be a really easy way to do that. Whenever I would do it for sessions, I'd have to go buy like 6 different packs of strings and like
piece them
cobble together what the pieces are. But this would be
Would
really
you
easy way to do
reiterate the Nashville tuning for us?
that. What the strings are? Is that what you're asking?
Reiterate.
Reiterate. Yes. So your high E and your B are just normal strings tuned normally, like you would on any 6-string guitar.
Okay.
But then the lower 4, the E, A, D, and G, are strung with just smaller gauge strings. So I think the heaviest string in a pack is like a 22. Like a 22
Okay.
might be your like.
So it's almost
low
like
E.
a reverse of a power slinky.
It's basically, think of it this way. It's a 12-string guitar, but take off the lower strings. It's just the octave
okay.
strings. Because on a 12-string,
all right,
the
okay.
high 2 are tuned unison, so that those 2 stay the normal, but the low 4 are actually tuned an octave higher than they would be. So all your same chord fingerings are exactly the same, but it gets a really interesting thing where if you do like an arpeggiated pick pattern and you get up to those high strings that normally sound higher, they actually sound lower.
Really?
So it's a really neat texture. It's a
Lower
really neat-
and as an actual note, or lower as in like a darker?
Well, they're an octave lower, so it's
okay.
a really tight. It almost gives you that, like if you capo, that like really really bright sound you get when you capo way up on the neck.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that, but it's the strings are super tight because
Wow.
they're all cranked way up. But it'd be a really easy way with these guys to make a Nashville set.
There you go. All right, so everybody who wants to try a Nashville set, go to stringjoy.com. I will follow up on probably next cast and tell you how they worked. These are both the identical set, but I am going to use them in slightly different applications. I'm going to use one on an arch top, my Godin 5th Avenue Kingpin P90, and then on my Telly that I use for punky stuff. So, cool stuff. That wraps up that segment.
Does it?
Except for Brian.
Oh my God.
New knob, what's going on new with you?
New with me. This is the first time I've been here, so it's all new to you guys, right? I have been kind of in studio mode. Last December, I started renovating the studio and all new stuff in. So I've kind of been in studio mode. But from a guitar standpoint, I probably bought one of the simplest things ever. And I don't have it with me today, but I too got a handwritten note and a personal email from the founder thanking me, asking me how I liked his product and all this. I got a thing called a pedal python. It's a weird name. I believe it's pedalpython.com.
Okay.
I have this.
Ministry of Information's on this right now.
Yeah,
for
we're
us.
going to check it out. It's the most, I love simple solutions to stupid problems, and this guy has solved this in a great way. I play a lot of modeling things. So when I play live, I carry a little 4-space rack with a fractal Axe Effects unit in it. And I've got kind of a big pedal board.
Way to steal your own thunder, dude.
Yeah, sorry. So I've got this big pedal board that, you know, it has a talk box on it and some, you know, power strip and some other things. I don't have a lot of individual pedals, but the controller for the Fractal is pretty big, and it uses a Cat5 Ethernet cable. So I've got a Cat5 cable coming out. I have an audio cable going back to the rack, and then I've got power going back to the rack to plug in. So I've got these 3 cords that are 30 feet long. And it's, you know, you have to run them all separately, and then you got to sort of tape them down out of your way and all this stuff. So this pedal Python, it almost looks like that sort of meshy material that you bundle cables like for home theater or something with. But the guy has a really ingenious solution. Like, everyone's used wire ties before and then had all the like lacerations and had to go to the ER from getting cut by wire ties. So he's got this really neat thing. You wire tie the end, and then there's a custom piece of Velcro that comes over that has a bump in it that's just made to cover the wire tie up so that it's safe. And then you fish all these cables down through this sheath and do the same thing at the other end, and you've essentially made a snake out of this thing. It's the simplest thing, but it was super easy to use, and it saves me, if I go out to shows with this thing, what used to be 15 or 20 minutes of time messing with all these cables, it's like 5 minutes now, and it's just been phenomenal.
The size of that Python.
Jeez.
So I see he has the a power cord run through there, like true, like
Full
DC
on power,
which
yeah.
is, I've always read that's not a good thing to run your power line next to your audio signal lines. So have you had any issues with that at all?
I haven't. I bought some really nice cables to put in it, some really nice heavy duty cables. I've always heard that if you run in perfect parallel, it doesn't do as much damage.
Talking about like it's kissing and crossing and bumping and grinding.
Yeah, bumping and grinding.
Like that. I haven't had any trouble at all.
But what kind of cables did you get?
I got them from, I believe it's called Besttronics, the company that I found in one of the forums out there. Super high quality cables. I've been buying either, I believe it's Besttronics. I may be incorrect. We'll see if the minister finds it. That may not be it. I'll look it up. I'll give you the right name.
Wait, hang on a second. let us point out that
That was me
Minister
searching.
of Information used a 120-year-old technology sound to reference his modern day lightning fast internet information finding.
Yeah, it's btpa.com. Or I can Morse code that to you.
Oh my goodness.
There.
Oh, that's going to be joy for Aaron.
Oh, actually, no, that wasn't
that
bad.
wasn't bad. No.
So these guys, great cables. I've been getting all my cables either from this Besttronics place or from Lava Cables.
Yeah.
They have some really nice stuff too. But I ended up going with Besttronics, and I got a power cable, Cat5 with the Ethercon connectors. It looks like a mic cable, and run them all down this thing. It's probably the most basic thing I've ever purchased, but it's amazing how just these little things can save you time.
There are, I mean, we're probably going to need to do one on cables alone. I mean, that's another thing that's just like exploding right now is custom, I'm using air quotes, cables. Stringjoy actually does custom cables too. And basically everybody is just getting on the like custom color, custom length, custom connection, and custom insulation. And man, cables are freaking expensive.
Yeah, they are.
I still have as one of my main cables the cable that I bought when I was maybe 23, and it still works.
There's not much inside of them, so
There isn't, but
it's all got to be terminated nicely and basically.
But I've bought many since that
nicely.
have been crap too. So
Yeah.
tricky business. But it's I like the idea of having a custom color cable too. That's So we'll do a segment soon on cables of choice, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe get a couple and try them out and see what we like. Cool. So that Python's going to help you out, which segues deliciously into our main topic, which is Brian. And
Right.
As a topic.
Brian is a topic.
Brian himself as a topic is probably not sufficient enough for
Once you get
for our
past the
podcast.
Bryan Adams jokes,
Right.
where does it go?
Right. But
That's a good question.
knowing him,
We joke about you all the time.
yeah, we actually, when you're not here, we make a lot of fun of you.
That's fair.
I think one of the reasons I wanted to have you on as a guest was to, I think you've got a really great story of how you came into guitar, how you've sustained yourself in guitar. And I think you have a more interesting choice of equipment than I would say the average person out there gigging or home recording. So with that, I turn it over to Brian Adams, not the.
Yes, I do have, I would say, an obscure gear preference. I like the digital stuff. I've always been kind of the digital guy. I think
But analog's so much better.
I have tube amps too.
Are you
I have
old man analog? Is
old
that
man- old man
Okay,
analog.
so we got to reference that.
Yeah, it's I feel like this is a throwback episode, and we're talking about modeling and things. I've found some pictures not long ago of you guys have seen some of my pictures when I had extremely long hair playing in a metal band.
Long hair,
Yeah.
jeez.
Yeah.
So bad.
So when you had long hair, what was the name of your band?
I was in a band at the time called Girth.
Yeah.
Girth. You can find us on Spotify and all your other channels. There's another band we get grouped with on Spotify that were way heavier than us, and I think instrumental. So
Were they called Shaft?
they were also
Okay.
called Girth, but it's
okay.
different. Yeah. But yeah, we played the harder rock, metal-ish stuff, all originals. So back then I had a Marshall that I used almost for power, and I had a 30 space rack. That if you've ever done the math, 30 spaces is
That's like Universal Studios style.
it's high. Yeah, 30 space rack is gigantic. And I had this was like the early 90s to mid 90s. So I had the ADA MP1 preamp and the Rocktron IntelliFX processor and the Digitech harmonizer and all of this stuff and the amp and the rack, and it all drove these speaker cabinets. And I was we had like a huge box truck and just massive amounts of gear.
To your BC Rich Warlock.
I was playing all Ibanez at the time. All Ibanez. Everything had a floating tremolo on it.
Sure.
But it all, was all that like metal setup. And every time I'd have to get this 30 space rack like up a flight of stairs or something, and I'd have to have 4 people helping me. That's when I was like, man, I wish I could just get all this in a box that I could carry myself. And, it's kind of became this thing, but you just couldn't get it. You either went down the tube amp route, which is just big and bulky too, or you had racks and racks of like components. So one day I was working in this music store in high school and college, and there's a guy that came in, and he was one of those guys that he always wanted something, but he never had money, but he had stuff to trade. And we had like really strict rules on what we could take in on trade or what you could give for certain trades, but we'd be like, well, what do you want for it? So a lot of the guys that worked there would kind of barter with him and buy things. And this guy came in and he's like, hey, he had this guitar. And it was in pieces. It was an Ibanez like fixed bridge guitar. I don't know why it was in pieces. I didn't ask, but he said, I just want somebody to, he had this really gruff voice. Like, I just want somebody to put this back together. And it's just like box of parts, and here's a body and here's a neck. And I'm like, okay, how do you want to pay for this? What do you want to do? And he's like, have you seen that Line 6 amp? And I said, well, I've seen it. And I actually, in my head, I was picturing it as like, it was the Line 6, I think they called it the Axis 212 back in the day. And it was like, in the picture, I thought it was like maybe a foot wide and like 8 inches. It looked like a little tiny practice amp. And I have this big giant rack, and I'm thinking, wow, it'd be nice to just have an amp like in my practice room just to, be able to play this thing. And then he's like, I'll give you one of those. I bought it and I hate it. I can't understand it. So I'm like, yeah, great. I'll get a little practice amp out of this. So then he wheels this thing in, and I should have known from Axis 212 in the name that it's 212, right? So it's like the size of about a Fender Twin, something like that. But still, it's easier than carrying around this thing. And as I got it, I just went, man, this gets me like halfway there. And, at the time I was playing in that when it was the all original band, it was more about I made my tone, right? The ADA, and like that was my sound, and I had one sound that I used throughout the night. There was a clean and a dirty and a lead patch, and done. That's all I needed. Then as the years went on and we weren't writing as much and we were just picking up a lot of shows doing covers, I discovered that I got really into trying to match what I was covering. You know, if I was playing
Important for a cover band.
right, you know, there's always some leeway, but I wanted to like really go in, and so when I had that thing, I found like I could dial up a really thin sounding like Fender Tweed amp, and then I could go right to something that sounded like this huge stack. And like to me, that was kind of, I had been using digital processors, but this is sort of the thing that got like modeling kind of changed it for me.
For sure.
But it's not easy. You know, I think that's why people plug into this stuff and they just go, it's not, because it doesn't feel the same. You know, it's not that like when you plug into, I've got a triple rectifier, the Mesa 412, there's no quiet, right? You plug into that thing and you feel your clothes move, and that's part of the sound is the air that it's literally moving.
Yeah.
If you actually heard the sound that a Mesa puts out, it's really thin and kind of brittle. It's just the character of it. So when I got into that became like a real unlock for me. This became like kind of a new passion.
Okay, so you went from so interesting. You went from a Marshall to a Line 6. I bought a Marshall 8280 valve state twin from a guy who worked at Marshall and then started working at Line 6, and he was selling all his stuff off for the Line 6 stuff when Line 6 like really first exploded. And I went in and tried out what a Line 6 was. I was like, I gotta see what this thing is, because you know this guy left. Who leaves that job for, right? And he's like, hey, you want to sound like Eddie Van Halen? Click, and there you sound like Eddie Van Halen. It's like, and that actually freaked me out a little bit. And I was like, back away. So the fact that you embraced it, and as
Is
you
that
said,
why?
many
Is
of
that
others,
because you were trying to play Eruption? You're like, I can't do it.
well, I couldn't, but thanks for bringing that bad
I can't
memory for me.
Everyone
No, it was
knows the tapping part.
Just tap it.
it was weird. There was something that felt, and I think probably a lot of people struggle with this, like probably even Analog Man.
Old man analog.
Old man analog. Yeah. Who, you know, there's a like an inauthenticness about it. When you first approach it, you're like, that's not real. And when a lot of money is attached to it, something that you're not used to, or that you don't know how long it's going to stick around, that's a big giant barrier. But you embraced it.
Yeah, I did. And you know, it was actually a bit out of ignorance at the time too. I hated pedals for my entire life, and even when I worked in this music store, I realized, this is almost embarrassing to say, I realized how pedals really work in the last like 5 years. Mm-hmm. I always thought that, like, think distortion pedals. Mm-hmm. Like if you're playing, like I was playing harder rock and metal, you know, angst-ridden 20-somethings, right? We're all playing that stuff. And I always thought that like a distortion pedal, you would put it on a clean patch. And then I was like, these sound like garbage. They're just like little thin, you know, and I'm trying out like Bosses and DODs and all those pedals that were out like in the late 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize until later in life that like people were running a Marshall and they're running it at like half gain. And this is just like kind of the boost of the boost.
Yeah.
And I was always such a purist with like signal flow and gain and things that I was like the cleanest of the clean sound. And I'm trying to make this pedal do all this work. Mm-hmm. But then I've got the distortion so high that these 9-volt driven things are just like hiss monsters. So that, I think the reason that I went so deep into digital is because I could make it do what I wanted, and I was just using things differently than most people were.
Well, you were using the mentality that you were comfortable with, just with the right set of tools now.
Right. Yeah. I've always been more of that, like recording has always kind of been a thing for me. So signal flow, and I hated noise. I remember I went to the Newport here in Columbus one Halloween, and it was the first G3 tour. It was like Satriani, Vai, and Eric Johnson. Amazing night. All three of those guys were monsters. But
Jeff just gave you the O face right there, by the way.
No,
I
actually,
was there.
no, he didn't even react.
No, it's like, you guys didn't go?
He's like,
where was your problem?
He just shuddered. He just shuddered.
I remember though Eric Johnson coming out, and you know the guy was monster tone, monster player.
Yeah.
You can't take anything away from him. But I remember he comes out, and the house music goes off, and he comes out on stage with that Strat, and through the PA you just hear. And it's just so much hiss.
So
and
loud.
We were joking the whole time about like how many 9 volts does that guy go through at a night? Like, and you know, all these, because it was just, and I've never been able to tolerate things like that. Like I can't get over hiss and hum and buzz and like background noise. And guys like Eric Johnson embrace it and just play through it and still sound amazing. But I can't there's a certain purist mentality that I just couldn't get past with that stuff.
So you were Line 6, which was kind of at the beginning of the kind of the digital revolution of guitar tone, right?
Yeah, sort of them. I followed them. I went from the Line 6 to the Line 6 Veta that I got. I had the Axis or the Axis 212. Then they sold an upgrade kit to turn it into the AX2. And nobody would do this anymore. They actually sent you a chip. Oh. And you took the guts out and you popped out the processor and you popped in a new processor and then there was a new faceplate that you glued on and they wouldn't do that. So when I went to the Veta,
like you're fixing up an Audi or something.
I know it was very in depth. But then I went to the Veta, the Line 6 Veta, and they were on this trajectory of doing boutique stuff. They were doing high end. I'm like, this is it. They're with me. And I think after the Veta, then they went, wait a minute. There's a lot more people buying $100 amps and $300 amps than are buying these $2,500, $3,000 amps. So I think they lost me when they went more for volume and started, filling up Guitar Center with things. So then I think the quality started to go down because they were just making cheaper products. So
they started splintering out all the different products.
Yeah,
focusing.
Yeah, the Veta to me was a really, really nice processor, and they've just gotten back to it now with the Helix, which I haven't played yet, but I'd love to hear it.
I saw a review of that thing. It looks interesting. So that's kind of leading into your next upgrade, right?
Yes. I love this one.
The Axe Effects.
Yes. So I am now playing the Fractal Audio Axe Effects. I have the Axe Effects 2, I believe, not the 2XL. But it is phenomenal. I think, the thing with all this processing, when you get into modeling and you get into all these things, it's kind of like tube amps. When you think about tube amps, when you get into the Mesas and things, the more tubes in there, you get more versatile, you get more rectifier tubes, you can do more with it. The same logic really applies when you think about something like an Axe Effects, where it's all in processing power. You're buying a computer.
Right.
So what these people did, it's not a cheap processor. It's not entry level by any means. But what they've done is they just put monster processors in it so that you've got these amp models and they can sound right. I just watched a video on the Helix, and the guy that was demoing it talked about processing power. And they have this massive library of all these amps they've collected, all these old tube amps that they model. And the thing he mentioned is they went back and remodeled all these amps that they had because now they have the processing power to actually
do it better,
change all the parameters and things. But yeah, the Fractal is my main. I've actually coupled it with something too. It's I don't even know if you know this yet. So the Fractal is where I do. It's my main tone source with the pedal board. I've got a couple Mission expression pedals that I use with it. It can be wah or volume or whatever. Got to have the talk box in there, and everybody's got to play some Bon Jovi now and then. But the coolest thing that I added to it, this path of trying to really model the amps that if I'm playing with a cover band right now, and it's kind of fun to just take that challenge on and try to match their tone.
Definitely.
So I've added the Line 6 Variax to the mix too. So I'm not only playing fake amps. Now I'm playing fake guitars through the fake amps. So I feel like if I'm going in, I'm going all in.
Yeah. Which is pretty phenomenal sound anymore. I remember when Line 6 first came out, I got the Pod, probably a million other people did too,
Yep.
and there's maybe 4 settings on there.
Yep.
Useful. I imagine I didn't play any of the other Line 6 after that because it's not there.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen. But hearing the Axe Effects was wow, it's almost there.
It's pretty close
and
too.
Majority of people probably wouldn't know.
It's until you play it, you really don't know. I kind of bought it a little bit sight unseen. I'd read everything on the internet and I watched all these demo videos, and I'm seeing all these people do it, pick it up, and I'm seeing I was seeing it on stages, like a major acts. I would notice, and they do a fly gig where you never know what backline amp the company's going to bring in for you. So these guys finally just started buying these things, racking them up, and they just fly with it, and then they can plug it into whatever power amp shows up on the other end. And it's the coupling of those two together, the fact that I can dial up on the Variax. If you don't know what the Variax is, I can explain it really quickly. It's essentially a regular guitar. I have the one that's kind of like a Les Paul shape. I think it's the JTV 59, I think is the one that I'm playing. The original model didn't have magnetic pickups in it. It only had the little piezo pickup under the bridge, so it was all modeling. So the new one, you can use it just like a regular guitar with a 3-way switch and a volume and tone, but it has 2 other knobs on it. So if I put it in to one of the modes, one of them is a guitar model. So you can pick a Tele, a Les Paul, a Strat, and the software, the Workbench software that I have on the Mac, you can pull it up and say, okay, I want this to be a Strat body with P90s, and you can even adjust the angle, or there's 3 P90s and they're all slammed back to the bridge, or you can do all these like custom configs and save tunings with it too. So I'll dial up, that you're playing, whatever you want to sound like. You want to sound like Tom Petty, you dial up like a Fender Twin or something on the Fractal, put it on a Tele setting here, and it's pretty close out of the box, and then you tweak it from there. But it's really nice to be able to just change tunings. You want to play in drop D, you just move it down to D, and you don't even retune it.
That's wild, man.
You're
summing it up.
It's just everything's fake. There's nothing to see here.
So were you, this is a problem I always have with something as versatile as that, both the guitar and the XFX, is like you can modify it for days and you become paralyzed from everything you can do with it and trying to find the right thing.
It's true. It is an endless quest. I don't know if you guys do this too, or if Old Man Analog does this with things, but I find like before I have a show, I set everything up like in the studio, and I decide like the night before a show, I want to redo all my sounds. I do it every time, and I don't know why I do it every time, because I can always make it better. There's always something to do. I will say that something that's helped with that a lot is I hate, like everybody, I think the thing that turns most people off about stuff like this is editing from those front panel screens and the arrow buttons and like the dials and wheels, and you can't see the whole picture.
Right.
All the software now that comes with them, all the USB connections, makes it it's drag and drop, and you can drag your signal chain out, and I wouldn't know how. If I was out at a show and I had to edit something on the Fractal, I would have no idea how to do it. I've never used the front panel. I do it all in the software.
Does that scare you at all? If like, let's say something just goes haywire. Like,
it does. I had that happen one year with my 30 space rack. We were playing this Battle of the Bands one time at like this outside place, and the power was running from like 1,000 yards away, so there's probably like 4 volts by the time it got to the stage. So my rack just kept, like 4 of the processors just kept resetting. They would just reboot and reboot and reboot. And my friend's band was there, and this guy plays this like 1970 the Marshall, the one that's like, is it the 45, the JTM 45, I think? Old Marshall that like has no channel switching or anything, no reverb. It's just like a single channel Marshall and a rat pedal, and he's like lets me borrow this thing. So, and it's not my tone at all. So I'm playing this gold-faced beast, because that thing didn't care. It actually sounded really interesting being starved for voltage. Like it did this. So that happened to me with the rack. So to this day, I carry in my bag a $29 Behringer like little guitar pedal that just has an XLR out on it. Yeah. And it's just there's like clean, dirty like lead. It's just got like a switch. And that's my fallback, that if something goes down, it will sound terrible, but it'll be some kind of noise.
Do you ever bring just like a single 12 combo or anything like that? Nothing.
I don't even own one. I have the part of the rack is I play the Matrix audio stuff. I believe they're in London. Really nice single 12s, and I have a single 12, just like a Q12. And I run a Matrix power amp, like 1,000-watt power amp. But everything we do is all in ear now. So the only reason that it's even there is if I want to go back and make something feedback. It's just there literally for that. So I'll go back and just grab the volume and make it feedback, and I just turn the volume off because I don't hear the cabinet anyway. But I do carry a little bit of an amp. I could just run my $29 Beast into that if I had to.
Or the Smoky.
The Smoky would do it.
There you go. Put that in your back pocket.
So talk about let's all of your digital gear is very fascinating, Brian. Can you touch on just really quick? We know that you have a pretty you got a good story around your learning.
Were you just patronizing our guest?
Well, yes, but in a comic way.
Fine with that.
Your Old Man Analog.
Your story has become tiresome.
Old man analog is frustrated with all these ones and zeros.
I don't know what he's talking about. So those of us who know you, you got a really great story about how did you go from 0 to where you are now. Touch on that really quick.
Yeah. I started playing guitar in, I believe it was January of 1989. And I had a friend who played who, I would kind of watch him and started getting interested in it. It was about the time that Appetite for Destruction was all over everything, everywhere. Very ironic that they're back on tour now. I think starting this
Old
week.
Man Analog just gave the metal horns.
It's nothing wrong with a little Appetite for
Oh, wait,
Destruction.
I'm Old Man Analog? No.
Thanks for playing.
So I just started picking up things about that time, and I realized really quickly that I was going to do this, and I was all in. So I started trying to learn everything and read everything, and I was buying guitar for the Practicing Musician and Guitar World, and I think at the time there were 5 guitar magazines, and there's 1 now, or that's how you learned. There was no internet to look up stuff. It was just buying things and dissecting albums and all that.
Oh, to have stock at Guitar Center at that point.
Right. When you had to go to a store to buy something. So I decided that I set a goal for myself, which I was never really good at doing. And I decided that I was going to play guitar at least an hour a day, every day. That was all right, I'm going to do this, and that'll help me get better if I make it a schedule. Mm-hmm. So I did it, and it was never just an hour. And I was like, I want to do this for a year. I want to see how good I can get next January if I do this for a year. So it was always 3 hours, 4 hours. I would come home from school and play until 2 in the morning and repeat, right? It turned into that. So I decided that I was going to do that for a year. And a year sort of flew by, and those first years, I wish I could learn that much now, It's man, every day I can play something today that I couldn't play yesterday, and leaps and bounds. So I did it for a year, and I was like, I wonder how long I can go without skipping a day, without never playing a guitar. And there are days, you're sick or whatever, and you might not get 8 hours in, but you might do an hour or something like that. Even I would go on vacation with the family, and I would figure out to go to California to see family, and I would have to rent a guitar and an amp while I was there, and my uncle would get it and have it there so that I could fly and then I could play. Family was really frustrated. I'm like, no, I can't miss a day. I was
Sounds like club softball or something.
Yeah, it was terrible. But I did it for a year, and then I ended up sticking with it, and it was over 10 years before I actually missed a day of playing. And then from that point forward, I just stopped practicing. So I'm terrible about it now.
Then you discovered girls.
Oh, that's the reason I started playing, actually.
But yeah. Somehow you forgot about them in the middle.
Yeah. I just I just went all in.
That's cool. So that's a story that you've shared with a lot of us. And I think probably, I know I've gained inspiration from that. So now what is your approach to continuing to grow?
I have realized with guitar, that's always home base. It's even if I'm doing something for work, I might be mixing something. I did some stupid little video thing the other day where I was auto-tuning, kind of like an auto-tune the news sort of thing. But I grabbed a guitar to figure out what notes they were and what key is the backing track in. That's my home base. I always go back to that. So I've started now with my studio at home, challenging myself to not go back to guitar. It's I want to surround it with other things. So I want to understand more about theory. I want to do more with the piano just because it's easy to put other things in if I'm composing something. And I'm trying to focus more on the other pieces where I went all in on the mechanics of guitar and just how do these two hands work together to make sounds.
Yeah.
I want to round myself out with being a better writer, with being better, just knowledgeable about music and the parts that I think will plug in that will ultimately make me an even better guitarist. But I need better surrounding skills, I think, is where my focus is right now. I want to write stuff it might not even be music that I'm into now, just write something in a different style or just start to broaden out weirder areas and figure out what's going on in there.
I think that's a topic that Aaron touches on quite a bit about just getting back to your writing and your
writing roots. That's always been my biggest thing is more than being a technician or a master of one thing. You know, it's like I've always just been dabbling in all the other accoutrements.
Okay. Thanks, Twisty Mustache. Cool. All right. Well, we're right about at the time for
Top 4.
top 4 and plus 1. But, dude, thanks for sharing the story. That was
Thanks for having me.
super
It's been a blast.
I think on the next episode, I'll touch onto how the story that he just shared, which I already knew, inspired me to start something last night, which I'm not sharing today.
Cool.
Wow.
Say that again.
All right, so our top 4 plus 1 today is signature sound. So, what guitar playerist for you has a signature sound that you're like, yep, I love it. I love that sound. Maybe it's a default that you always go to when you're actually playing to make you feel comfortable, make you feel like you're rocking out, doing well.
I mean, like
whatever.
Eric Johnson's 9-volt battery hiss, like that's the kind of thing.
sure.
That's your thing.
That's not my thing.
It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be ultra specific, but you guys know the rules. And we'd love to hear yours. So after we finish this segment and post it up, go ahead and comment on our Facebook group and let us know what your favorite signature sound is, and spin the wheel of topics to Jay.
Boom. All right. So, guitar signature sound that I was thinking about this week was Andy Summers, right? I'm a huge Police fan, right? And so I just always dug his, like, you know, like when you listen to a Police song, you know it's a Police song, right? But without any without seeing the
You mean because of Sting?
well, no.
Who's this annoying singer? Oh, it's
Well, I mean, yeah, I guess actually you're like, well, yeah, he's,
No, I know.
his tantric, you know, you can recognize his tantric sexuality coming through the. Oh God, whatever. No, Andy Summers has a cool sound. It's always really clean and like, you know,
Chorusy.
There weren't a lot of like, and that's actually I typically like really crushing distortion on guitars, right? But I always dug his thing because it was just not like everybody else at the time, and so and you know, doing all those inverted, you know, and reggae style stuff way back.
You're
when
right.
was-
Inversions.
Yeah.
Keep going. You're right.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Yeah.
Old man Analog has got one up his skirt right now.
I know, man. God. So yeah, Andy Summers.
It's about time I start dishing it back out to all you mofos.
I feel like you occupy a space on this show.
The anger.
Okay, so yes, Andy Summers. That's a good one.
Andy Summers.
Yeah, is that what he sounds like?
I don't know. I don't know what he's. I never met the guy.
He's from Seattle.
But no, I mean, I think that is actually a really good one, and not one that we might have. It's not an obvious one, but it's certainly like the minute you hear it, you're right. It's like you know exactly where that's coming from. Jeff, Hefe.
This is an easy one for
Bryan
me.
Adams.
Yes.
Wait, the
In
Bryan Adams?
85. Is that cut like a knife? 85.
somewhere in there.
Yeah.
It's my favorite tone of a guitar I've ever heard in my life.
I have a sense this is not true.
No, this is not true. No.
So what is true?
So there's a bunch that stand out for me, but there's one that I always try to play and sound like, which I can never do. And
Dio.
no,
He's a singer.
yeah. Well, we could talk. We're not talking about singers at all, right? That'd be Vivian Campbell
Vivian Campbell?
from one.
Choose it, man.
No, Stevie Ray Vaughan,
Stevie Ray Vaughan, okay.
Of course.
and it is all magic in his hands mostly, which is it's sad to try to emulate, and people do try to emulate, and some do it successfully. But the fact that he has this crazy sound that he developed over years of him just fighting that guitar and, you know, strong handing it and different.
He played like 14s or something. On
Yeah,
that, like
which
really,
super
really,
heavy.
really heavy strings too.
Yeah, back to the string conversation though. I was actually just reading an interesting article on Premier Guitar about all these theories about what people actually use for string gauge, and that was one of him using ginormous strings and starting this trend of, hey, if Stevie Ray Vaughan is doing it, he's getting this tone, I'm going to do it. Everybody started using.
And Billy Gibbons uses like eights or
Eights,
something.
yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
bananas.
There was a couple other people that were really interesting. Like you would never expect them using this type of string. Chuck Berry used banjo strings.
What?
Yeah. So like crazy stuff like that.
That's crazy.
But yeah, so his tone is to me, it's, it's not nowadays with all the blues players out there, everybody's trying to emulate him and getting lost in the mix of what he really was able to accomplish with his tone. And I mean, many people have tried to emulate him for years. So very recognizable for me.
Cool. That's a good one.
You, Todd?
Me?
Yeah,
Moi?
let's switch up the order a little
Okay, I'll
bit.
switch up the order. Billy Duffy. I'm a huge Cult fan, but aside from like the Cult songs and digging what they're about and everything, I've just always appreciated his tone, and it feels close to what I usually end up doing. Actually, if you go to billyduffy.com/gear, it's a great site. They list out everything that he uses, and if you click on any one of those things, it gives you even some of the pedals, which I also appreciate because he doesn't have a massive pedal board. He's a master of simplicity. He's got his Falcon, he's got several of
17
them.
of them, it looks like.
He's got a lot of them, but his tone's coming from his Falcon, and he's got a signature Falcon, a Les Paul custom. Those are his two main guitars that he uses. And then when we're talking about amps, he's not using massive stacks. He's pushing smaller amps. I think he's on tour right now with Roland Voxes. But he has a couple for different sounds. Like if he dips into like Sonic Temple, I think he's pulling up a Friedman or a Matchless. I'm trying to remember.
The irony is I play nothing but Friedman models in my Fractal.
There you go.
Fake one, real
Put
one.
a Friedman in your Fractal. That should be their headline.
Never heard of Friedman.
I've been seeing them everywhere. My favorite one in there is called the Harry Brown Eye, which is the best name ever for an amplifier.
Ooh.
So are those
Friedmans are crazy expensive. Those are
Yeah.
like $3,000 heads.
but they're like
They're
they're
essentially like
It's like
hyper modded modded.
That's
It's
what
like
that's what I
a
thought.
JTM 45 that's been hyper modded.
right.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. But I've seen other people that like on the clean side starting to use them,
Yep.
Yeah.
and so I was curious about that.
Well, yeah, they're kind of like the tippy top of the boutique,
Yeah.
like food chain. And then pedals. His main sound is driven by a Kalamazoo, a Love pedal Kalamazoo, and he's got a tube screamer, and he's got this one called the Whirlwind, the Bomb pedal, which is basically just it's a volume boost, not a pedal on a rocker, but anyways, just really simple sounds. But he's dialed those three variables: the guitar, the amp, and the short stack of pedals. To the minute I hear his sound, it's like I know it. I absolutely know it, and it's a progressive, biting, but still like classic, like toothy rock sound with a little bit of dimension to it. Love it. Thank you, Mr. Duffy. I learned how to play guitar basically like replaying his song. So there you go. Cookie, what you got?
What? It's so funny.
Nothing.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead now.
Okay. John Frusciante.
Okay, Brian, what's your... No, I'm just-
Here we go again.
I don't know.
The laughing continues.
Yeah. Mike's.
I don't have to take this from you guys.
I don't know. I don't know where his sound comes from. This is going to sound super cheesy, but I swear it comes from inside of him.
And heroin.
And,
Not anymore. He's clean now.
yeah, he is clean. Does yoga. eats kale.
Electronic musician now, right?
Yeah, actually, he's really into that stuff as of late.
Line 6. Go ahead.
But yeah, I mean, it's like honestly between Les Claypool and Primus and
No, pick one.
Yeah,
late
pick-
90s Chili Peppers.
Frusciante.
Well, I mean, those are the artists that really got me into music, and I just remember being in high school, freshman year, and Blood Sugar Sex Magic came out, and just the layers that were being created in that music astounded me. Still does. That album is probably my favorite ever. But I don't know. There's something really ugly about his tone. It's just raw, and I think.
Yeah. I would agree. It's like he's fighting in a bad
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
Which
But when
makes
you
it
watch him,
interesting.
he's lost.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
absolutely
Yeah.
lost in it, and that's pretty beautiful, actually.
Yeah.
He's really unconventional with the stuff that he makes up too.
You didn't
Yeah.
realize how much his sound was the Chili Pepper sound until you
Oh.
heard Dave Navarro try
Right.
to carry that.
Yeah,
on.
right. that
It's
was
like,
awful.
Oh, that's not right.
No, and I like Dave. No, I'm a fan of
Right.
Dave.
Yeah,
but
he's-
that was
that
not
guy-
a good fit. That
No.
was- that didn't.
Crazy rhythm, like his rhythmic skills were like, I thought were massive.
Who for Shawnee?
Yeah. Like
oh yeah.
How he just real subtle sometimes.
But
Yeah.
and he does them in. The reason that it is a signature sound is he creates those in very unconventional ways, and it feels like it's constantly changing. It feels like you don't hear him play the same thing almost ever. It just everything he's doing sounds so new. I got a CD, John Frusciante CD, and I think it was like 50 songs that he just like busted. He was just like, bleh, right? And hey, listen, not all of that was gold, let me tell you. But it really opened my eyes to like, holy mackerel, this dude has got vaults of music and talent just laying there. And that was really impressive.
It's interesting the difference between someone that's always experimental, right? Always trying to push their sound, trying to come up with changing their presets right before the show, like always trying to experiment, trying to get something new, versus the guy that got their tone and mastered it and then use it, every day as a weapon. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
there's a lot of people that they got their tone, they will not.
Right.
Stevie Ray Vaughan is one of them, right? You know his tone, that's his tone. He doesn't venture out of that very far. But you have this other whole side of exploration, which is good and bad, but it's definitely more creative and energetic sound.
Well,
Yeah, I wish I was a weirdo like him. I feel like I'd be a much better artist.
Oh, you are, brother.
No.
That brings up a good point, though. Like, we're talking about signature sound or signature tone, right? And right now, up to this point, we've kind of focused on what are they using to do that? But if I think about Duffy and doing his open string droning stuff, right? And John like fighting the guitar and doing like really weird chord structures, and Stevie Ray like again fighting and like pushing and overdriving and really messing with volume. Right. Like that's not a result of an equipment chain. That's back to like what are they actually doing? That's actually creating their own signature sound, not just notes.
Yep.
That's a good one. All right,
Thank you,
Brian. Bring it home.
Yes. I think signature sound, I go a lot of different ways with it, and things that like have stuck in my brain of sounds that I want to emulate and things that I want to be, and it's really weird. You nailed it there where you're saying like it is all those factors together. And it's like when we talked about this subject, I'm sort of like, how do you pick one thing?
Right.
But I probably would have to go to something that drove me musically to try to be a better person in that realm. And it would probably be John Petrucci from Dream Theater.
Whoa.
Okay.
Yeah. It's really weird because that to me, like when I heard Pull Me Under, I'm like, okay, this is like a Metallica album, but these guys are super technical.
Right.
Like, what's going on there? And so then I bought the album, and of course, you hear Pull Me Under, and that's like the most mainstream thing they've ever recorded still to this day.
Yeah.
And there's like this whole realm out there. And I was never like into all the other progressive bands, usually if you're a Dream Theater fan, you've got this whole list of other bands that you follow around the world. And that never was a thing for me. But I was fascinated at how John Petrucci could get heavy tones, like metal-like tones, but yet I could still hear 6 different notes in all those gigantic chords that he's playing. And so it was like, while it's not, to me, like I gravitate toward tones that I can't play, like Stevie Ray Vaughan. That's if there's one person that's like on the bottom of the list of somebody I could never ever sound like, it's got to be him. Like I can't match that tone, but I love that, like that throaty strat sound, that single coil on a neck pickup, like that. That tone is just like a fascinating tone to me. So it's like I'm drawn to those, and even guys like the Helicasters and those guys that do the crazy crazy thing. Like I can't mimic that, but I love pulling like those pieces out into things. And it's weird too. I was just having this conversation with a guitarist friend of mine about how as I get older, I play with less and less and less gain. I keep like backing the distortion down.
Same thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know what it is, but like you feel like you're covering something up in there, and you see
clarity.
You start to pull some stuff out. And I told him, I said, I started backing the gain down. He's like, oh, I'm never doing that.
I find myself practicing country licks. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess we all grew up at some point. But yeah, I think from the standpoint of Petrucci's not the most like, oh wow, I know who that is when I hear it. It's again back to that point of what does he do with that tone, and how does he mix it in with 17 keyboards and some guy singing opera and a drummer that's playing 1 million beats a minute, and it's a fascinating thing when it all comes together.
That's a good one. I kind of thought you might mention him. There's maybe 2 or 3 others that I figured it might be, but he's kind of a beast. Not doing so bad with all of his signature gear right now too.
Yeah.
Holy moly, that guy's
naming everything.
Yeah, jeez.
I tried listening to their new album.
It's an adventure for sure. Yeah, yeah. I used to listen to them almost 24/7, and I've kind of backed off a little bit. I don't think my brain can handle any more stuff in there. There's a lot going on.
It's another interesting topic.
Yeah.
Kind of like turning it down, like what you cannot listen to any longer because you've listened to it way too much.
I kind of thought that you were going to pick Joel Hoekstra.
I don't even know who that is.
Oh, well, you should look at that. Wicked.
I feel like I've got some learning to do.
On
I don't know who that is either.
Level, like, yeah, he flowed through all of the, a lot of the bigger names. He was in Whitesnake and Night Ranger, Trans-Siberian Orchestra.
There's no signature tone.
Apparently not.
No, he's just amazing, and not amazing. So okay, and this is where
is this because you went and saw him in the orchestra?
Never seen him. But I was watching that metal show
Siberian
one season, and I was watching this guy. I was like, oh my gosh, that guy climbed to the top of, I think,
is he the blonde
technical
hair
skill and raw talent, just being able to fluidly express yourself, which is different.
I love the gesture too,
fluidly expressive, muy macho. Which is, we've had this discussion several times about Satriani and stuff like that. It's like, I would, any day of the week, I would rather listen to Frusciante struggle and beat the crap out of his guitar than listen to Satriani. And it's not obviously he's really good. It's just, it's so perfect and unscary and
it's very happy.
Yeah, it's happy, and it's just, there's no danger in it.
Yeah.
And there's no oh gosh, he just went there. I didn't expect him to.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's like if you hit a piano key, it's like bing, that's the tone. That's it. That's all it's ever going to be. And that's what it's kind of like listening to. But the one I thought you'd either pick Joel Hoekstra or yeah. But anyways, so anyhow,
I need to look him up.
Yeah. Interesting character to watch. Okay, so
this was a marathon.
That was, but that's a good one.
It was good.
Thanks, dude.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks,
It was a blast.
Knobs. Well, that's it for these knobs. Please join us on facebook.com/groups/guitar knobs and tell us what you think and share your stories and guitar stuff along with ours. You can also find us at twitter.com/guitar_knobs and also at our website at guitarknobs.podbean.com.